Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamsha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So welcome to the Nectar of Instruction Bhakti Sastri study. Yesterday we finished the discussion on text 3. Today we will start with text 4. Dadati prati granati guhyam akhyati pruchati bhungte bhojate chaiva shadvidam priti lakshanam. Offering gifts in charity, dadati. Accepting charitable gifts, prati granati. Revealing one's mind in confidence, guhyam akhyati. Inquiring confidentially, prichati. So here, Prabhupada mentions revealing one's mind in confidence as guhyam akhyati and inquiring confidentially as prichati. But it is both ways. Here we have to understand, you can inquire confidentially and hear confidential instructions, because reciprocation means it has to be two-way. But somehow Prabhupada has mentioned in his verse-to-verse translation, the translation as Guhyam Akhyati Prachati, as revealing as well as inquiring. So both constitute Guhyam Akhyati Prachati. It can be inquiring confidentially and getting confidential instructions also. So that is Guhyam Akhyati Prachati. Accepting prasadam, bhungte, and offering prasad, bhojate chaiva, cha eva. Cha is here, eva means these are the 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee another. Shad vidam priti lakshanam. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, for text 4, he mentions Shad vid pritir lakshanam. So we have been seeing how the Updeshamrit verses are very systematic and progressive. So in text 1, we saw Vacho Vegam deals with Madhyam Adhikari's symptoms of self-control. And when he masters self-control, then they are the symptoms of a Tridandi Swami. And then in text 2, we saw Bhakti Pratikul Shadgun. And text 3, we saw Bhakti Anukul Shadgun. Now in text 4, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Shad with Priti Lakshanam. So you can see these verses are very progressive in their understanding and evolution of ultimately attaining prema. So how do we understand that Shraddha is also in one sense the dawning or the beginning of prema? And when we have faith, we associate with devotees, we hear Krishna Katha, and these urges, we try to restrain them and control them so that they don't act obstacles in the path of bhakti. And how do we know that we have love for Krishna? Whatever are unfavorable, these 6 qualities we avoid, and whatever are favorable for that love to expand, that bhakti to expand, we follow these rules. Now, further that love, how it expands? By having 6 loving exchanges with devotees. So the Madhyam Adhikari's external dealings and the bhakti rules, they are progressive. And in text 4, it is mentioned how he expresses that love what he has for Krishna in the form of having 6 loving exchanges with the devotees. Shad with Priti Lakshanam. Now, as sadhakas, we cannot expect that we offer our devotion to Krishna and Krishna directly reciprocates with us. Krishna can do that, but in the sadhaka state, we cannot experience that. Sorry. In the sadhaka stage, there's some problem with the camera. Just a minute. Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So in the sadhaka stage, we might not be able to directly have loving exchanges with Krishna because Krishna is at a transcendental level of reality, or the deities might not directly reciprocate with us. We offer Krishna bhoga and Krishna accepts the prasad, and we might not perceive, because of lack of purity, we might not perceive how Krishna is directly reciprocating by accepting the prasad, but theoretically we understand. Only for Raghunandan it happened that Raghunandan offered the laddu, Krishna did not have it, and Raghunandan's pure devotion was so deep that Krishna ultimately in the deity form had to stretch his hand and eat the laddu. So it might not happen for us, but definitely it is true that Krishna accepts. So till we are at that level of bhava and prema where we can experience direct loving reciprocations from Krishna, we have to exhibit that same love what we have for Krishna in the form of these 6 loving exchanges with devotees. So when we do these 6 loving exchanges with the devotees, it reflects our love for Krishna. So that is being discussed in text 4. Now Srila Prabhupada's purport, paragraphs 1 to 4 explain the 6 loving exchanges. Then paragraph 5, Prabhupada gives his conclusion. 6 and 7 is Anuvritti explanation of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And then there is a conclusion and a connection to the next verse is mentioned in paragraph 8. So it's a very short commentary. So we will go paragraph by paragraph and try to discuss what Prabhupada has to say about this. Shad Vidam Priti Lakshanam. Let's go to Updesh Amrit. In paragraph 1, Prabhupada explains these 6 loving exchanges, and he gives a short definition of Guhyam Akyati Prichati and Bhungte Bhojate Cheva. In this verse, Rupa Goswami explains how to perform devotional activities in the association of other devotees. So in the last 2 verses, one common thing was there, that we should avoid asatsang. Sangatyag and Janasanga was twice it was mentioned. Now, yes, that negative injunction was there twice. Now we should associate with devotees. Now, in the association of devotees, what we should do? In the association of devotees, we should do these 6 loving exchanges. So this is how you can understand also the connection between text 2 and 3 and text 4. There are 6 kinds of activities: giving charity to the devotees, accepting from the devotees whatever they may offer in return. Like somebody might come and give a huge donation, and we'll give him some Mahaprasad and some garland. So although it is humble and menial, but still those devotees who give charity, they will accept it. So this dadati pratigrana. Now opening one's mind to the devotees, Guhyam Akhyati, and inquiring from them about confidential service of the Lord. That means you hear from them the confidential instructions about how to serve the Lord. Honoring prasad and feeding the devotees with prasad. So these 6 things he explains, and then Prabhupada gives a definition of Guhyam Akhyati Prichati. As I was mentioning, it's not only just confidentially asking, Guhyam Akhyati, and Prichati means inquiring, but it is hearing confidential instructions. So Prabhupada has given a beautiful definition of Guhyam Akhyati Prichati. An experienced devotee explains, and an inexperienced devotee learns from him. This is Guhyam Akhyati Prichati. This is Prabhupada's definition of Guhyam Akhyati Prichati. Experienced devotee speaks or explains, and an inexperienced devotee learns from him. So this is what in many of our ISKCON centers we have what is called as the counselor system, the counselor and the counselee, or the Bhakti Vriksha system, where the Bhakti Vriksha leader, who is quite experienced practicing spiritual life since many years, he guides the other devotees who are new to the Bhakti school in understanding the basics of Bhakti and guiding them. So this is in ISKCON what is called as the Bhakti Vriksha model, or the counselee system, or whatever you might call in any of the temples. And this is Prabhupada's definition of Guhyam Akhyati Prichati. It is there in Prabhupada's purports. If you ask, where is this counselor system? Where did Prabhupada have this? But Prabhupada is giving a very clear explanation of this in this definition: experienced devotee and inexperienced devotee. So this is one aspect you have to understand. Many devotees, I find, they have a misconception, you can say, about especially Shiksha Guru. Whomever we experience devotee, whom we learn or we come and touch the devotion and we start practicing devotion, they are to a certain degree our guides. But Shiksha Guru and Diksha Guru are both equal, and they are partial manifestations of Krishna in one sense. Krishna, they are Swayam Prakash in one sense, it is said, and they are Mahabhagavats. They are at the Uttam Adhikari level. So the counselor is quite different compared to a Shiksha Guru. Shiksha Guru means he is a Mahabhagavat and he is a manifestation of Krishna. So that's why there is no difference between sorry. There is no difference between the Shiksha and the Diksha Guru. Whereas counselors, you cannot term as Shiksha Gurus. That's why Prabhupada, he's using the definition as experienced devotees. So they can be counselor, they are experienced devotees. So one might have counselors, one might have their Diksha Guru whom they are taken initiation, and one might also have a Shiksha Guru who has to be on a very, very elevated platform. So that is the difference between the three. We have to have a clear understanding. It's not that our counselor is our Shiksha Guru. We might use that too, but in the strict sense, both the Shiksha and Diksha Guru are Mahabhagavats and they are Uttamadhikaris. When a devotee distributes prasad, remnants of food offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in order to maintain our spirit of devotional service, we must accept this prasad as Lord's grace received through the pure devotees. So here, bhongte, if you see Prabhupada's definition of bhongte, as I mentioned, our Updeshamrita study will be based on that one statement of Prabhupada. Advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower. So, how we should accept prasad? Not in a spirit of enjoyment. So, and in a spirit to maintain our devotional service. Our engine has to run throughout the day to do Lord service. So, to maintain that engine, maintain that spirit of devotion, spirit of service, that is why we take prasad, not to enjoy the food. When we say we enjoy the prasad, then we are in a spirit of that mood. But we accept them as remnants of prasad and Lord's grace, which we are receiving through the pure devotees. So this should be our attitude towards prasad. We should also invite pure devotees to our home, offer them prasad, and be prepared to please them in all respects. This is called Bhungte Bhojayate Chaiva. Bhojayate, Prabhupada is especially referring here to Grahas devotees who invite the pure devotees to their house and offer them prasad and try to please them in all respects. And during Bhaktivinoda Thakur's time, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a Grahastha and he used to invite many sannyasis to come to his house to take prasad. And the sannyasis is to consider their good fortune to have prasadam at a Mahabhagavat's house like Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It was their fortune, they used to think like that. So again, it doesn't matter somebody is a grahastha or a grahatyagi, I mean a grahastha or a sannyasi. But who is advanced, it depends on who has attraction and taste for chanting the holy names. This is the criteria, what Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. And we see in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the pastime, although Chaitanya Mahaprabhu delivered Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to go and accept prasadam in his house. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya used to invite regularly Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to leave to South India tour, he repeatedly gave requests to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and until Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya gave permission, he was not ready to leave. So much he was controlled by his devotees. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had developed so deep attachment to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he was following him. He had made all the arrangements for his travel. In fact, the Kaupin also Vastra, he had told one of his disciples to get, and he had kept few sets for his bathing whenever he is in the traveling. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and he said that be at home, chant the holy names, serve the Vaishnavas, and you please bless me. Karo mora ashirvad. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a sannyasi, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is a grahastha, but still Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya to bless him. So how is it possible? How can a grahastha bless a sannyasi? Prabhupada in that purport explains that it is a matter of elevation. So that's how we'll have to also see this from both angles. Now, in the next paragraph, Prabhupada now explains that these 6 types of loving exchanges, which Rupa Goswami is mentioning in the Association of Devotees, this is a very universal principle. Even in ordinary social activities, these 6 types of dealing between 2 loving friends is absolutely necessary. Then Prabhupada gives the example of a businessman. He wants to expand his business. He calls his another businessman in the hotel. He arranges a feast for him. And then he does Guhya Makyati Prachati, on how I can expand my business, how I can, strike a deal. And then he exchanges some gifts. So all the 6 loving exchanges happen in this 2 business people. So similarly, Prabhupada explains, thus, whenever there is a dealing of preeti or love and in intimate dealings, these 6 activities are executed. So the most important point here is for devotees that many devotees ask this question. We are working outside in the outside world and we meet so many materialistic people. Is that association? So here is the point that if we do these 6 loving exchanges with the materialist and with intimacy and with affection, then it will affect us. So that is why with materialist, we should deal with respect to our business or with our work, but our heart should be to give to Vaishnavas and have these loving exchanges with Vaishnavas. Then you will not be affected with that so-called association. So these are the 6 loving exchanges. They are done, and it is a very universal principle. And same which is done in the association of devotees, that will expand our love for Krishna. In the previous verse, Srila Rupa Goswami advised that one should renounce worldly association and keep the company with devotees. Sangatyaga Shatovrati. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness has been established to facilitate these 6 kind of loving exchanges between devotees. So what is the purpose of ISKCON? Prabhupada is giving here. In many places, Prabhupada will, text 2, text 3, text 4, he will give the various purposes why he established ISKCON. And ultimately in text 8, he will come to one purpose which is very difficult for devotees to follow. To fix the mind always on Krishna, he says. That is the purpose of ISKCON. Krishna Mati. This society was started single-handedly, but because people are coming forward and dealing with the give and take policy, the society is expanding all over the world. We are glad that people are donating very liberally to the development of society's activities, and people are also eagerly accepting whatever humble contributions we are giving in the shape of books and magazines dealing strictly with the subject matter of Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada started this life membership where people give donations, and Prabhupada is to give the Srimad Bhagavatam set or the BTG set, like that. So many small books together. So these are the Dadati Pratigranati principle. Then Bhumte Bhojate, Prabhupada explains, we sometimes hold Hare Krishna festivals and invite life members and friends to participate in the feasting by accepting prasad. Although most of our members come from the higher rungs of the society, they nonetheless come and take whatever little prasad we are able to offer them. Sometimes the members and the supporters inquire very confidentially about the methods of performing devotional service, and we try to explain this. This is during the Sunday feast. In fact, all these 6 loving exchanges happen. There is Guhya Makyati Prichati. There is a Sunday feast class where an experienced person gives the class, and then there are question answers. And then there is Prasadam. And during the Prasadam, there is Bhumte Bhojate Chaiva. And during the Prasadam, or maybe in between or after that, there is, there is small groups where they meet and they discuss. There is Guhya Makyati Prichati. So all these 6 loving exchanges happen in the Sunday feast. In this way, our society is successfully spreading all over the world, and the intelligence of all countries is gradually appreciating our Krishna conscious movement. Now, this is Prabhupada is mentioning, which is very, very pertinent. The life of the Krishna conscious society is nourished by these 6 types of loving exchanges among the members. Therefore, people must be given a chance to associate with the devotees of ISKCON, because simply by reciprocating in the 6 ways mentioned above, an ordinary man can fully revive his dormant Krishna consciousness. So, If you remember, in the first class, we did the analysis of the nectar of instruction based on the 11 verses, based on Uttama Bhakti definition, based on Bhakti Vinod Thakur's analysis. And we had done from Bhakti Vinod Thakur's analysis from Bhajan Rahasya. There I had mentioned about Hridhay Dhaurbalyam, weakness of the heart. So by doing these 6 types of loving exchanges with devotees, our heart will become strong against the attacks of Maya. The weakness of the heart can be overcome. So because by these 6 types of loving exchanges, we nourished, our heart is nourished, and the heart becomes fixed in Krishna consciousness. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Sangat Sanjayate Kama. One's desires and ambition develop according to the company one keeps. So if we associate with devotees, we will become devotees. It is often said that the man is known by his company, and if an ordinary man associates with devotees, he will certainly develop his dormant Krishna consciousness. So just by associating with devotees, his propensity to love is there in the soul, and it is reposed in so many things. But now the real natural propensity is to love Krishna, and it is dormant, but it can be awakened when we come in the association of devotees. The understanding of Krishna consciousness is innate in every living entity, and it is already developed to some extent when the living entity takes the human body. It is said in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem, Sadhya ka Bunay, Shravanadi Shuddha Chitta, Karaya Uday. Pure love for Krishna is eternally established in the heart of living entities. It is not something to be gained from another source. When the heart is purified by hearing and chanting, that love naturally awakens. So the innate propensity of the soul is to love the Supreme Soul, Krishna. But that same soul, when it comes in this material world, it loves the things of this world. And that's why heart is a great obstacle. So the heart's propensity, heart here I mean the soul's propensity, is love for objects of this world in the form of accumulation of things, accumulation of knowledge, filling our heads. So this innate propensity is there in us. Srila Prabhupada used to give the example of the child ability to walk. That ability to walk is there within the child, but initially he needs help in the form of parents holding the hands, or you have some toys, some kind of toys are there where he sits inside and tries to walk. If the walking ability is not in the child, no matter how much external support he has, he can never walk. So sadhana bhakti is that, where we engage the senses, and the senses, when they are engaged in the Lord's service, the senses get purified, and the soul, natural propensity to love Krishna manifest. So this is the verse Prabhupada is mentioning. He is mentioning in respect to how by these 6 loving exchanges, the dormant propensity of the soul can be awakened. Since Krishna consciousness is inherent in every living entity, everyone should be given a chance to hear about Krishna. Simply by hearing and chanting Shravanam Kirtanam, one's heart is directly purified and one's original Krishna consciousness is immediately awakened. So, Navida Bhakti, Prabhupada is quoting here. Krishna consciousness is not artificially imposed upon the heart, it is already there. When one chants the holy name of the Supreme Personality Godhead, the heart is cleansed of all mundane contamination. In the first stanza of his Sri Shishtashtaka, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Chaito darpanamarjanam bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam shaya kairava chandrika vitaranam vidyavadu jivanam Anandambudivardhanam pratipadam purnamrita swadanam sarvatma sapanam param vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. So Prabhupada is giving how this Krishna consciousness is dormant in the heart, in the chitta. And when the chitta is cleaned, Chaito Darpan Marjanam. Prabhupada is specifically referring to Chaito Darpan Marjanam in the Shishashtakam verse. So when the heart is cleansed, then the Shuddha Chitta, the Chitta where is Krishna Prem. Shuddha Chitta Karaya Uday. When the Chitta becomes cleared by hearing the Krishna's name, all the impressions which are there, the material impressions which are there in the heart are wiped away. And then the natural heart, which is pure, is naturally attracted to Krishna. That is Nitya Siddha. That is why it is Nitya Siddha. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem. It is already there, but now it is covered by this unlimited material desire. So that's why Prabhupada is quoting this Chaito Darpana Marjanam. In the next paragraph, now Prabhupada explains about how this Mahamantra does the purification. Not only the chanter of the Mahamantra, but the heart of anyone who happens to hear transcendental vibration, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is also cleansed. Even souls embodied in lower animals, insects, trees, and other species of life also become purified and prepared to become fully Krishna conscious simply by hearing the transcendental vibration. This was explained by Thakur Haridas when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inquired from him how living entities lower than human beings can be delivered from material bondage. So Prabhupada is referring to the Haridas Thakur and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Samvad. This is there in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Untitled Chapter 3. Mahaprabhu comes and asks that all these Yavanas go Brahmana Hatya. They are killers of cow and Brahmanas. How Kiba hobe nistar? How will be they delivered? And Haridas Thakur, Chinta na koribe, Prabhu, don't be in anxiety. He's telling the Lord, Chinta na koribe. Easily, anayas, by taking your name, by taking your holy name, they will be delivered. What to speak about? Just by chanting Namabas, they will be delivered. And then he gives the example of how this Yavana, in the Narsimha Purana, it is mentioned that he had gone for a nature call and a boar, wild boar, attacked him with his tusk. And they have this habit, the Yavanas have this habit of something which is condemnable. And they use a very filthy word that is called as haram. Haram, haram. This Muslim said haram, haram, and he was killed by the boar and he attained mukti. So that is the potency of the holy name. And Haridas Thakur explains that the pure devotees of the Lord also say Haram, Haram. Haram, Haram, and pure devotees they say, Oh my Lord Ram. So out of prema, they say, Oh my Lord. Like Draupadi called out, Hey Govinda, Hey Damodar. So similarly, Haram. And the Yavanas, out of contempt, they call haram, but both get same benefit. The name doesn't make this discrimination. The potency acts. So this is a very elaborate discussion which will require 1 or 2 classes to discuss. But there, the glories of the holy name. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is astonished. How does Haridas Thakur know about all these glories? So after explaining how all the human beings can be delivered, what to speak human, even the Yavanas can be delivered by Namabas. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asks, what about lower living beings who are not human beings like the insects, plants? Haridas Thakur says, you have arranged for their deliverance. When they hear the devotees chanting Uccha Nama Sankirtan, they also can't chant, but they can hear the trees called as Padapa. Padapa means they drink water through their roots. So they can also hear, the trees also can hear. And this is proved by many scientists today. Even Mr. Bose also proved this. So the trees hear, and sometimes there is an echo which comes. And Haridas Thakur says, this is not echo, this is not pratidhuni. Actually, that is they are chanting. So the trees also reciprocate back in the chanting. So even the lower species like the animals, plants, they can also be delivered. And my Lord, you did that act in Jharkhand. When you were in the Jharkhand forest, traveling, even the deer and the tiger were hugging each other and kissing each other out of Krishna praying. So you yourself demonstrated. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is astonished. How does Haridas knows all my confidential pastimes? Then, because Haridas Thakur had got the mercy of the Lord. So Haridas Thakur said that chanting of the holy name is so powerful that even if one chants in the remotest parts of the jungle, the trees and animals will advance in Krishna consciousness simply by hearing the vibration. So there in ISKCON, there is one of our wonderful sannyasis called as Jananand Goswami Maharaj. He has written a book, Animals in Krishna Consciousness. So in many temples, there are many dogs or many other cows who just come for Krishna Katha. Bhagavad Sapta, when it is there, they come and hear. So he has narrated all those stories. So hearing that stories can be inspiration for children and even us also. If animals can advance, then why can't humans advance in Krishna consciousness? I know particularly of in our temple, after the Shringar Darshan, that is morning 7:15, after the darshan, nice hot, not hot, it's cool and cold, sweet rice, which is offered to the Lord in Mangalarti, is distributed to all the devotees. And one of the specific dog, every day at Shringar Darshan, he'll come and stand in front of the temple. And one Mataji is to give this dog the sweet rice, and he'll eat the sweet rice and he'll go. So he understands that 7:15 means my time to go near the temple. So even the trees and the animals can advance. So why can't human beings advance? I know one devotee, he wanted to serve a pure devotee by offering throughout the year jackfruit. But jackfruit only comes in this season, especially in India in the rainy season. So he used to offer cow dung, cow urine, and pray to the tree that please give me fruit throughout the year. And it is interesting and amazing that this jackfruit tree gives jackfruit throughout the year. And he gives us off-season also, jackfruit. So maybe because another pure devotee is praying for him and he's also advancing, that's why it is reciprocating. So even the lower species can advance. This was actually proved by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this whole story is here. About how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu delivered all the animals also. In Vrindavan in 1970s, in Barsana, there was a very elevated saint, and he had a disciple, a tiger. The tiger was his disciple, very surrendered to him. And the sadhu had told the tiger that you go each house in Barsana and do madhukari. Madhukari means go do and do begging for roti, braj roti. So this tiger is to go and knock the door, and then when the brajvasi is to open the door, they is to be scared and they is to run away seeing the tiger. This tiger is to feel very bad, what to do. So it went back to the spiritual master with a low head. The spiritual master understood. Then he put a board, a small plate in front of him in his neck, that please give me madhukari, braj roti. I'm a disciple of this sadhu. So with this board, he used to knock, and then the brajvasis used to see the board and understand it was harmless. And then they used to give the braj roti. He used to carry the braj roti, and then give it to his master, or he used to have it. So this is in 1970s, which happened. It's a true story. Even Rasikanand Prabhu, who was the disciple of Shyamanand Prabhu, he had an elephant who was his disciple. That elephant had surrendered to Rasikanand Prabhu. In fact, with his trunk, he used to take the charanduli of his spiritual master. So Prabhupada explains that we are not powerful enough to enchant the lower animals such as tigers, snakes, and cats and dogs to entice them to dance. But by chanting the holy names, we can actually convert many people throughout the world to Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada is not asking us to do that. entice tigers, elephants, snakes to become Krishna conscious, but at least human beings, we should do Nam Sankirtan and make them Krishna conscious. Haridas Thakur used to stay in a cave where there was a huge snake and he was completely oblivious to it. And it was emanating some poison where nobody could stand there for even few seconds. But Haridas Thakur's heart was so pure that he did not feel any effect. At last, the devotees requested, please shift to some other cave. We are not able to come and take our association. So then Haridas Thakur, accepted, because you are facing the trouble. I am not having any trouble. So I will decide either I will move out or the snake will move out the next day. So the next day, the snake, the huge snake, which was blue, yellow, and red in color, very huge python snake, it moved out from the cave. Everyone saw that. So the snake could understand that I should serve Haridas Thakur. It is causing disturbance. I also want to take his sangha, but what to do? So this is, Prabhupada is giving a very practical instruction that we should chant the holy names. And this we can do if we go out and Sankirtan. But before we go out in Sankirtan and chant, we should do nicely our japa. There are three types of, Sankirtan. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita it is mentioned, Tara Madhya Sarva Shresht, Nama Sankirtan, Niraprada Namaloy, Paye Premadhan. So among the Navida Bhakti, the most potent Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says is Nama Sankirtan. And Niraprade. Niraprade means without any offenses, if you take, you will attain Krishna Prema. Sankirtan can mean japa, it can mean kirtan, and it can mean sankirtan. So japa is for our own purification, which we chant the everyday minimum 60 number of rounds. And kirtan is when all devotees come together and sing various bhajans or the Hare Krishna Mahamantra for the pleasure of the deities. That is kirtan. And sankirtan means the devotees go out in the streets and loudly chant the holy name and invite others to receive the holy name or to purify the atmosphere so that others become receptive to taking up spiritual life. So when we do japa nicely, then we can do sankirtan and attract the conditioned souls. Now Prabhupada in the last part of this paragraph gives the definition of what is Dadati principle and Pratigrinati principle. Contributing or distributing the holy name of the Lord is a sublime example of contributing or giving charity. So this is how we go out in Sankirtan and we give charity in the form of giving the holy name. By the same token, one must also follow the Pratigrinati principle and be willing and ready to receive the transcendental gift. So we should present ourselves in such a way that the public can appreciate us and they have positive impressions and they are ready to receive the holy name. That is how we should expose them to this Nam Sankirtan. So Srila Prabhupada practically spread the Hare Krishna movement all over the world by just Nam Sankirtan. He used to send Sankirtan parties who used to go in the streets and chant the holy names, and they used to distribute Back to Godhead magazine. And that's how people started becoming devotees all over the world. So one sannyasi told me personally that he had gone to UK for his studies abroad. And he was sitting in a restaurant and he saw a Sankirtan party chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. He was stunned. Oh, this is our culture, Indian culture. Who are these foreigners? He came out and he saw devotees chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And he bought a book, Ish Upanishads. And he read the book and immediately joined. And now he's a sannyasi in ISKCON. So we should do the Sankirtan in such a way that we don't create chaos and nonsense on the street, but do it in such a grand way that seeing the Sankirtan, they feel that, this Kirtan, what we are seeing is not of this world. It is completely from a different world. Golokera Premadana Harinama Sankirtan, as Narottam Das, we should feel like that. There are also many kirtans which happen on the streets in the public, especially during Ganesh festival. Seeing it, it's not so attractive to the heart because it is not done exclusively for the pleasure of their worshipable Lord. There is, we can understand. Real kirtan is only for Krishna, or real bhakti is only exclusively for Krishna. And when we do it for the pleasure of Krishna, it can attract the conditioned souls. One should inquire about the Krishna conscious movement and open his mind in order to understand the situation of this material world. Thus the Guhyam Akyati principles can be served. So Prabhupada in brief again discusses Guhyam Akyati principle. So you have any questions till now what we have discussed? One second. Yes, Purna Mataji, you have a question?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Dadati means to give charity and Pratigrahan means taking something. So how this is related to the movements as we are talking about?
How it is related to the movement?
Yes.
Now, Dadati and Pratigranati, these are give and take. Now, within ISKCON, what are the examples which we see where there is give and take? Where Prabhupada is in the purport discussing about giving the holy name. We go out in Sankirtan and we chant loudly the holy names, and the public assembles, and there they hear the holy name and they get affected and they receive the holy name. Or well-wishers come to a temple and they give donations. And in return, we give some Mahaprasad, garlands. So like that, give and take. So that is Dadati and Pratigranati, which we can see. So like that, there are many examples of this Dadati and Pratigranati, which we can see. So that's how we have to understand within ISKCON how these Dadati and Pratigranati are there. I hope it is clear. Any other questions?
Yes, Prabhuji. I'm clear about this, and we are talking about the Guhyam Achyati Prachiti, means that we should have confidential keeping something inside. Like if we are telling to our teachers, our spiritual masters, so we are talking about the spiritual master only, or we are talking about all the teachers?
Okay, I'll come to that.
Guru.
I wanted to discuss that in detail because this is one of the most important topics. When Prabhupada speaks about Guhyam Akati Prichati, now, especially this has to be very clearly understood. Now, in context of a counselor and the counselee, let us take that example. The counselee might be going through some difficulties in his spiritual life, and he might open his heart and express to the counselor. Now, the counselor duty is, if he's not very advanced, if he hears and he speaks it to others, then the counselee will be very disturbed about it. So confidentiality, this is called as confidentiality. The confidentiality has to be maintained between the counselor and the counselee. Now, with respect to the spiritual master, if we have access to the spiritual master, we can reveal our mind to the spiritual master, and the spiritual master is very elevated, very matured, and he will maintain that confidentiality, and he will pray to the Lord, so that the disciple can become free from those problems or free from those crises what he is going through. So we see at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is practically in tears. Ashru Purna Kulakshanam, as Sanjay describes in 2.1 in the Bhagavad Gita. And he is going through a crisis in his heart. Karpanya dosho pahata svabhava. Prachami putam dharma sammudacheta. Yat Shreyaswan Nishchitam Bhuhi Tanme Shishyasteham Shadi Mam Tvam Prapanna. So in this disturbed state of consciousness where he's perplexed completely, now he surrenders to Krishna and he's asking him, what is my duty? I'm Dharma Sammuda Cheta. Cheta means consciousness, Dharma Sammuda. I'm bewildered as to what is my Dharma now at this point, at this junction. Then in one of the verse, it is mentioned, Sanjay says that Prasanniva Bharata. Prasanna means Arjuna, Krishna smiled. But Krishna internally just smiled. He did not open his mouth and started laughing. Ha 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 ha, If he had done that on the battlefield, Arjuna, who was already devastated, he would be more devastated. I'm expressing my problem and my spiritual master is laughing at me. So Krishna did not laugh, but he just smiled internally and he showed maybe one of his teeth. But if he had laughed, oh Arjuna, you're in this problem, and he had, mocked at Arjuna, Arjuna would be devastated. So similarly, the spiritual disciple, when he's very disturbed at heart, when he's going through some crisis in life, he will confide. Best is to confide to his spiritual master if he has a very good relationship and he's very accessible to the spiritual master or to the Siksha Guru, whom he can have confidence. The counselor also has to be very mature. Counselor is who is locally available where he's practicing the spiritual life. So it is the duty of the counselor to maintain confidentiality. And if he doesn't maintain the confidentiality, it will cause havoc in the disciple who is going through the crisis. So this is a very, very important thing which devotees should understand. And devotees should also find out who is such a counselor whom I can confide. It takes some time to build the relationship, and slowly when we have discussions about Krishna and slowly when the relationship builds, then the trust is there, and that time we can have this relationship between the counselor and the counselor where you can confide and there is confidentiality which is maintained. It's very, very important. It is said that Lord Ram was such a wonderful personality that any praja was free to come and open up his heart and reveal to him, and the Lord maintained confidentiality with everyone. That is the Lord can do it. This is a very important point. The second most important point what I wanted to explain is also to give some examples. Is once one of Prabhupada's disciples who was a sannyasi, he was going through some trouble in his sannyas ashram, and somehow he did not have the courage to meet Prabhupada and speak to Prabhupada. So he left a letter in one of the temples where Prabhupada was supposed to come there, and he left his sannyas danda ashram and he left. He went. And Prabhupada came to know about it. Prabhupada got the letter, and Prabhupada was genuinely very concerned for the sannyasi. In fact, the temple president being not matured, when he also came to know about that, how this sannyasi had left his ashram, he just took that message and spread it across to all the temples. And Prabhupada was very wild with the temple president. Why did you do that? He was going through some crisis, and it is my responsibility as a spiritual master. I would have taken care of it. Why you had to spread this message everywhere? Now, once he comes to know that, all other temple centers know about it, it will become still more difficult for him to come back. You have made his case still worse, he said. Srila Prabhupada said like that. So this confidentiality to maintain is very, very important. So that's my point. Another point I would like to bring about is many disciples of Srila Prabhupada, what kind of previous lifestyles they were coming from, and they had surrendered their life to Srila Prabhupada and they were practicing bhakti and they were going through some troubles. And they had direct touch with Prabhupada through letters, especially through letters. Prabhupada kept direct contact with his disciples, although the preaching movement was spreading. And Prabhupada is to personally instruct them in how to face these difficult situations, what they are going through in their heart. Now, many of the letters which Prabhupada gave reply are available in the BBT or even in the Veda base, which I'm checking now. It is there. Many of the replies to these letters are there. But all the letters which the disciples wrote to Prabhupada, they are confidential. They are not available in the Veda base. They are not available. But they are the personal letters of the disciples. You can see here letters. The whole letter correspondence is there. But these letter correspondences are Prabhupada's reply to the disciples. What is their, letter which was received by Prabhupada? That is not there. So my point is that Prabhupada individually, having concern for each and every individual, he used to give specific replies to them. Now, these letters are not available to us. They were the letters written by the disciples. Now, in one of Prabhupada's disciple, who is also initiating spiritual master, found these letters written by the disciples to Prabhupada. And reading the problems, what they were facing, he really got a headache hearing the problems. And he said that 1 week his headache did not go. And you can imagine what advanced consciousness Prabhupada had, that he was spreading the Hare Krishna movement all over the world, and he was dealing with all the problems of his disciples. So, in fact, the counselors also should understand to up till what level they can handle the disciples' problems. What is their capacity also they should understand, and they should be faithful and loyal and sincere, and as much they can handle, they should be able to handle, and they should not take something more, because if they take something more than their capacity, and then they'll have to speak out to someone, and then they will break the confidentiality, and that can cause serious problems with the counselee and his spiritual life. So in America, there are psychiatrists. Many people go through many problems in life and they need psychiatric consultancy, and they reveal to the psychiatrist what problems they go through. But the psychiatrists also have their psychiatrist whom they consult because hearing all these problems, they also go through a lot of difficulty. So we should, have this practical understanding of how much we can actually handle and digest. And we have to maintain this confidentiality. Confidentiality is a very, very important aspect in Guhyam Akyati Prichati. And that's why I discussed a few points about this. So any questions you have regarding this last part, which I discussed a little bit more elaborate, Guhyam Akyati Prichati, regarding confidentiality. Any questions anyone has? Poonam Mataji. Just a minute, let me unmute you. Yes, Mataji.
Prabhuji, as you talk about this, that the counselor has to know how to deal with this problem and have to give the reason, but can they take the help from the other gurus, like Shiksha gurus or the spiritual master?
Yes, definitely you can take help of the Shiksha gurus who are more elevated, or the Diksha gurus. But what if they are not available and accessible? What we will do that time? So we'll have to, at our level, where we are practicing in our zone or our area, have to have a counselor who is matured, who is elevated, and who can guide us when, especially, we are going through crisis in spiritual life. And we have to test him also whether he'll be able to maintain confidentiality. Regular discourses where there is classes, where there are question answers, that is okay. That's also Guhyam Akyati Prachati. But revealing one's heart, there you'll have to be careful, and you'll have to have proper persons whom you can reveal, have these reciprocations, these 6 types of loving exchanges, especially with respect to Guhyam Akyati Prachati. There you'll have to be a little careful. Otherwise, it can also create a little havoc in your spiritual life. Is it clear, Mataji? Any other questions anyone has about Guhyam Akyati Prachati? Okay. Now, from here onwards, I think I did not show the slides. I have firstly Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his commentary, Piyush Varshini Vritti, he says, Asat Sang Tyaji Sadhu Sang Kare Bhai Pritir Lakshan Chaya Vichara Sadai. Brother, give up bad association, associate with sadhus, and always engage in the 6 exchanges of love. So, give up bad association was spoken in 2 verses. In sadhu, associate with sadhus, and do the 6 associations. And what are that? Dana Graha, Swa Swa Guya, Jigyasa Varnana, Bhunjana Bhojana, Dana Sangera Lakshan. Giving and accepting gifts, asking about and describing confidential matters. So here you can say Puchati and describing is there, Akyati. And eating and distributing food are the characteristics of such association. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur makes it very clear here. So in paragraph 1, we discussed the 6 loving items and what is the definition of Guhyam Akyati Prachati, definition of Bhungte Bhojite Chaiva. In paragraph 2, we discussed the universal principle of 6 loving exchanges, how ISKCON's purpose is there, how Krishna consciousness is innate, Chaitanya Charitamrita verse, and how the chanting cleans. In paragraph 3, how chanting cleans oneself and others, Haridas Thakur and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu definition, and Dadati Pratigranati principle. Now, in next paragraph, Prabhupada explains ISKCON, how it facilitates these 6 loving exchanges. Here, Prabhupada explains in this paragraph, I'll just summarize, I'll not read it, that we hold this Sunday feast. It is called as the Sunday Love Feast. And people come to honor Prasadam, and then they also ask about spiritual inquiries. So Dadati Pratigranati, Guhyam Akyati Prachati, and Bhunte Bhojite Chaiva. All 6 happen. And Prabhupada says that we should give up the association of karmis, jnanis, and yogis, because that association will not benefit. And if you want to attain the goal of human life, we should associate with Krishna conscious movement. And Prabhupada says it is the only movement that teaches how to develop love of God. Then Prabhupada goes on to the definition of what is real dharma. Dharma is a function of the human, not animal society. No animals have church, mosque. And everywhere in the world, even the aborigines in the jungles, they offer respect to something which is magnanimous or which is filled with Aishwarya. Because dharma is the function of the human beings. And the highest dharma is what? Where we develop love for God. Savai pumsam paro dharma yato bhaktir adokshaje ahetuki apratihata yayatma suprasiddhi. So Prabhupada gives the definition of that dharma is to perform bhakti to adokshaja, and that bhakti should be pure, ahetuki, and it should be uninterrupted. And this can only satisfy the soul. So religion, Prabhupada, in many of his preaching places, if you see, especially in the Western countries, when he met Christian preachers, Christian fathers, and other people who were practicing different religions, he did not condemn those religions. He said, your religion is first class if it can come to the point of love of Godhead. So that's how he presented. So practice your Christianity, come to the point of loving to Jesus. Then it is fulfilling real dharma. And we are also offering that. And our definition of dharma is Savai Pumsan Paradharma. Prabhupada used to regularly quote this in his discussion with Christian missionaries. So real religion means it has to come to the point of love of Godhead. If the members of the human society actually want peace, tranquility, and friendly relationship between men, between nations, they must follow the Krishna conscious system of religion by which they can develop their dormant love for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As soon as people do so, their minds will immediately be filled with peace and tranquility. So, if we start practicing Krishna consciousness, develop real love for Krishna, then we will have friendly relationship between all men and all nations. So, during one of the lectures Prabhupada was giving in India, there was this constant war which was there between Bangladesh, and Bangladesh was separated now. It was East Bengal, it was part of India. But when Prabhupada was there in India, that time it became a separate country. And there was a lot of tension and turmoil during that time. And Prabhupada, when he was speaking in one Pandal program, he could see in the people's mind that they are disturbed about this situation. That like it was like a war-like situation. There was a war, in fact, during that time, and people were quite disturbed. And this kind of division was happening already. India and Pakistan had happened, and now Bangladesh was against, which was part of India, it had again become divided. So Prabhupada, in that lecture, he spoke that, if we preach this philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, then the whole world will become Hindustan, he was saying in that lecture. So all these divisions based on bodily platform, these divisions on the bodily platform, but as souls, we are all equal. We are part and parcel of Krishna, the Supreme Soul. So we can see that if we practice Krishna consciousness, then there will be friendly relationship between all men and also all nations. So this kind of transformation the Krishna conscious movement can bring. Now in the next paragraph is the Anuvritti Tika of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. It's quite short, so we will go through it. In this regard, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur warns all devotees engaged in broadcasting the Krishna conscious movement not to speak to impersonalists or Mayavadis, who are always determined to oppose such theistic movements. The world is full of Mayavadis and atheists. That's why Prabhupada Manaprantar is what? Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Deshatarni. So the whole world is filled with Mayavad. In fact, every soul who is there in this material world is a Mayavadi. Why? Why every soul is a Mayavadi in this world who's come in this material world? Anyone would like to answer? You can raise your hand. Why every soul is a Mayavadi who has come in this material world? Who would like to answer this? Can raise their hand. Let us see here in the audience. Who would like to answer this? I hope you are clear with the question. Yes, Lata Mataji. Yes, I have unmuted you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavad Pranam, because we want to become the controller.
Yes.
We want to become God because.
Yes, we have come here to become God. The reason is we are here in this material world because we wanted to be the enjoyer. We wanted to be the Purusha. So this deep-rooted tendency is there. So now we have understood, no, we are not Krishna, but we are Krishna Das. So now that consciousness we are trying to cultivate. That's why the world is filled with Mayavadis. And the political particles of the world take advantage of the Mayavad and other atheistic philosophies to promote materialism. So the Mayavad philosophy, in one sense, promotes materialism and self gratification, because ultimately it denies personhood. That God is not a person. Ultimately, he is impersonal. So it, in one sense, promotes materialism or sense enjoyment. Sometimes they even back a strong party to oppose the Krishna conscious movement. The Mayavadi and other atheists do not want the Krishna conscious to develop because it educates people in God consciousness. Such is the policy of the atheist. There is no benefit in feeding a snake milk and bananas because the snake will never be satisfied. On the contrary, by taking milk and bananas, the snake simply becomes more, oh, sorry, I have to share the screen. More poisonous. Kevalam Visha Vardhanam. If a snake is given milk to drink, its poison simply increases. For a similar reason, we should not disclose our minds to the serpent Mayavadis and Karmis. Such disclosures will never help. It is best to completely avoid associating with them and never ask them about anything confidential because they cannot give any good advice. Nor should we extend invitations to Mayavadis and atheists or accept their invitations, for by such intimate intermingling, we may become affected by their atheistic mentality. Sangat Sanjayati Kama. It is a negative injunction of this verse that we should refrain from giving anything or accepting anything from Mayavadis and atheists. So once in some country, I think, Prabhupada was, some guests had come from another spiritual organization. They were all Mayavadis. And they were asking questions to Prabhupada. Prabhupada just replied, and he was not so much interested in debating and arguing with them. And they gave their pamphlets and they left. So then Prabhupada was distributing some dry Mahaprasad to everyone. And he said, get those pamphlets. And he put the Mahaprasad in that pamphlet and he gave it to the devotees. At least let it be used in Krishna service. So like that, we should be very careful not to associate with Mayavadis or accept their invitations also. There is one question. Yes, Mataji. Puna Mataji, you have a question?
Prabhuji, Mayavadis, are these the people who are following the Hatha Yogas?
In fact, in any other yogas, if they are practicing, there will be inclination of Mayavad tendency. What to speak, even many of the Abrahamic religions like Christianity and Islam, although they speak about Jesus and Allah, their philosophy is impersonalism, in fact. So what to speak of these other Hatha Yoga traditions or Ashtanga Yoga or Jnana Yoga? There is Mayavad tendency in it. So all these categories you can say, except the devotees who are Vaishnavas, all others in one category you can put as, Mayavadis. You can definitely put them in that category. Is
Okay, so does that mean the person who believes in Krishna or who's a devotee of Krishna, that person is not a Mayavadi person?
Yes, those are like
Prabhuji, your voice is not
or any other Gaudiya Parampara also. They are devotees, but especially where we have come in touch, we should be in that association. Or, oh, voice is cracking. Huh? Maybe it is because of the internet connection, I think. 1 second, let me change the connection. Let me change the connection and see whether it is better. Okay. Is it better now?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, fine. I think because when the internet goes slow, that's why it happens. So this is
yes,
a very important injunction that we avoid the association of Mayavadis. Yes, Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji, that is what I was asking. The person, whoever is believing in Ashtanga Yoga, or whoever is following Ashtanga Yoga or Hatha Yoga, if that person is a Krishna consciousness or believer of Krishna, so that person is not Mayavadi.
No, if he has faith in the path of bhakti, then he will not practice Hatha Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga.
Okay.
If he is practicing bhakti and just to maintain his health, he's practicing some yoga every day, that is a different issue. But if he's taking up the part of Hatha Yoga and Ashtanga Yoga, and he cannot be a devotee. He might externally exhibit that he is a devotee, but it is not so. And if you carefully scrutinize, then you'll come to know that they will have this impersonalistic philosophy. What to speak, those who take the holy name also, you cannot say that they are not Mayavadis. And the example is of Raghunath Das Goswami, who was traveling to Jagannath Puri, and another devotee, Ramdas Vishwas, accompanied him. He was so humble. He said, "Oh Goswami, I want to do some service for you. Please give me your bag. I'll carry it on my head." And throughout the journey, while they were walking from Bengal to Orissa, Jagannath Puri, he was constantly taking the name of Lord Ram. Relentlessly, he was taking the name of Lord Ram. But when Raghunath Das Goswami reached Jagannath Puri to Gambhira, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very happy and he hugged Raghunath Das Goswami, but he did not look at Ramdas Vishwas. Raghunath Das Goswami was surprised. Why did Mahaprabhu behave like this? Then Mahaprabhu revealed that he is taking the name of Lord Ram, but inside he has the desire to become one with Ram. So there was Mayavad tendency also in taking the name. So we have to be careful, and better to be in the association of devotees until we can really detect, especially when you are preaching also, we have to see if somebody is too much argumentative and he is presenting his own philosophy, then we might understand that maybe he is having some training in that field, and better to avoid preaching him also, and preach to the innocent, because they can be easily converted and they might take up practice to Krishna consciousness. So like that, we should be careful. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has also warned, Vishera Anna Khaila, Dushta Hoyaman. When one eats food prepared by worldly people, one's mind becomes wicked. Unless one is very advanced, he is unable to utilize everyone's contribution to further the Krishna conscious movement. Therefore, on principle, Prabhupada says, on principle, one should not accept charity from Mayavadis or atheists. Indeed, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has forbidden devotees to associate even with ordinary men who are too addicted to material sense gratification. So this again, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is quoting in his Anuvriti. We see here is a very important principle which we need to understand. Raghunath Das Goswami had renounced family life and he had come to Jagannath Puri, and he saw that many of Mahaprabhu's Grahast disciples were inviting Mahaprabhu for house for having prasad. So he also desired that let me also invite Mahaprabhu. And the parents of Raghunath Das Goswami were sending a lot of money and some items for his maintenance, but he was not accepting it. But this time he took it in order to feed Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu accepted the invitation 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. But then Raghunath Das Goswami thought, oh, this money which I'm getting, it is coming from that source, from my parents who are all Vishai, who are into sense gratification. Although they were very favorable to Vaishnavas, they used to give a lot of donation, but they were not at heart practicing Vaishnavism. They were Praya Vaishnava. They were almost Vaishnavas, as Prabhupada says in his commentary. So this is coming from not a good source. So Raghunath Das Goswami stopped calling Mahaprabhu. So Mahaprabhu asked his secretary, Swarup Damodar or Govind, why is Raghunath Das not inviting me? Oh, he feels that the source of money is not pure. So that's why he feels it's not better to invite him. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased. And that time he quoted this phrase, Vishera Anna Khaila, Dushta Hoy Man. If you eat Anna, which is coming from Vishaya, from sense gratifiers, then our mind will become impure. And in that impure mind, we cannot Nahi Krishna Smaran. We cannot remember Krishna. Then one question we can ask, if Mahaprabhu knew that it is Vishaya Anna coming, so Raghunath Das Goswami inviting, then why did Mahaprabhu accept that invitation? So he accepted to please Raghunath Das Goswami. So on a higher principle, he accepted the invitation of Raghunath Das Goswami and he had the purity to digest it. So that is why Prabhupada is saying, unless one is very advanced. So here is a very important principle in preaching, that sometimes we might break a lesser rule for higher principle. Like a preacher is preaching to one family and some of the family tells him, please come to our house once, and he goes and they might offer some fruits. And by taking that fruit, he's trying to connect that family to Krishna consciousness. So on this principle, breaking a lesser rule for a higher principle, he does that. The intention is very clear. But if he takes grains and other things, he might also get affected. It depends on his purity. So this is the rare principle which is used. On principle, it is mentioned. That's why breaking a lesser rule for a higher principle. We can do if we are very advanced. So Mahaprabhu accepted the prasad just to please Raghunath Das Goswami, and he was aware that ultimately Raghunath Das Goswami will have this realization. So pure devotees or advanced devotees can do that, and they can utilize everyone's contribution, because they use it completely 100% in Krishna service and they will not get affected. Otherwise, as a general rule, we should avoid association of ordinary men or also atheist. The last paragraph, Prabhupada gives the conclusion. The conclusion is that we should always keep company with devotees, observe regulative principles, follow in the footsteps of acharyas, and in full obedience carry out the orders of the spiritual master. In this way, we shall able to develop our devotional service and dormant Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada here gives the definition. The devotee who is neither a neophyte nor a Mahabhagavat, but within the middle status of devotional service, is expected to love the Supreme Personality of Godhead, make friends with devotees, show favor to the ignorant, and reject the jealous and demonic. In this verse, there is a brief mention of the process of making loving transactions with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and making friends with devotees. So it is the Madhyam Adhikari who does these loving reciprocations. We saw this. Madhyam Adhikari's dealings. So the Madhyam Adhikari understands who is the Kanishta, who is a Mahabhagavat. And he is the one who actually has these 6 kind of loving exchanges. A Kanishta, he doesn't associate with devotees and the deity, that's it. That is why he is a Kanishta. Whereas a Madhyam Adhikari, the innocent who are Kanishta, he preaches them. That's how he gives association with the equals. He will, share his heart with them. He will have very nice relationship with them. He will share Krishna consciousness with the equals. And with the very advanced, he will serve them very intimately. So these 6 loving exchanges are done by the Madhyam Adhikari. This is what? In this verse, there's a brief mention of making loving transactions with the Supreme Personality and friends and devotees. In the next verse, Rupa Goswami informs us what kind of Vaishnava should be selected as a friend and how Vaishnava should be served. So the Madhyamadhikari should be able to discriminate who is a Kanishta, who is a Madhyama, who is a Uttama. And these 6 loving exchanges, he has to have proper recipients. The 6 loving exchanges are told in text. Why? Now, who are the proper recipients? Who are the Kanishta? Who are the Madhyama? Who are the Uttama? It will be spoken in the next verse. So this is that verse Prabhupada is actually referring to. Ishvara tad adineshu balisheshu dushatsu cha prema maitri kripa upeksha yah karoti sa madhyama. An intimate devotee is called Madhyamadhikari. Offers his love to the Supreme Personality, Ishvara Prema. Is a sincere friend of all devotees of the Lord. Maitri tad adineshu. Shows mercy to the ignorant people who are innocent. Balishu kripa. And disregards those who are envious of the Supreme Personality. Dushatsu upeksha. Upeksha means he is indifferent or he disregards them. And that is also a sign of his love. According to the Dadati principle, an advanced devotee, Prabhupada says advanced devotee, is supposed to spend at least 50% of his income in the service of the Lord and his devotees. So we can understand how much we are advanced, by which how much we are able to spend in the service of the Lord and his devotees. Srila Rupa Goswami has set an example in his life. When he decided to retire, he distributed 50% of his life earnings to Krishna service and 25% to his relatives and 25% for personal emergencies. This example should be followed by all devotees. Whatever one's income, 50% should be spent on behalf of Krishna and his devotees, and this will fulfill the demands of the Dati. So very exalted instruction, very difficult to follow. And one can understand how much he is advanced by how much he is able to, contribute. This contribution can be in the terms of helping the preaching mission by arranging preaching programs, by sponsoring books for book distribution during the marathon. So all this, the more one is able to do, the more you can understand that he's advanced. So this is the standard which Prabhupada gave for the devotees. In the next verse, Srila Rupa Goswami informs us what kind of Vaishnava should be selected as a friend and how Vaishnava should be served. So that will be the link to the next verse, text 5, which we will take up the next week. So I know one of my friend, he was working as a software engineer and he was a team leader. He was earning around 1 lakh that time. This is maybe 10 years or 12 years back. And he used to give around measure at least 20 to 30% of his income salary directly to the temple. And later on, the temple managers were not so liberal in distributing prasad, especially on the Sunday feast and all. And he also reduced his donation. This can happen. So we have to be very, very careful about it. I know one devotee who earns a small income, maybe 5,000 a month, but he is full-time, he's single, is full-time, but he utilizes 50% of his income, that is 2,500, in service of Vaishnavas. Whatever the Vaishnavas' needs are there, he buys and gives it to them, and he sponsors, in fact. So like that, we can see when the income is small, you can follow this principle. But when the income is very huge, it's difficult to follow this principle. Many devotees speculate that maybe, if we are earning 50 lakhs and after income tax, we have only 10 lakhs. And in 10 lakhs, we give the income tax 30%, then 7 lakhs. So what is it, 50% of 7 lakhs? So like that, they calculate. But I don't know about it. But Prabhupada is giving a very clear principle here about it. And the more we generously donate, the more we can advance in Krishna consciousness. That's a formula, we can see that. So we have finished text 5 today. There is one question. If someone in the family follows Mayavad principle, how to deal with them? We can't do anything about it. Just, have very general dealings with respect to how we deal with family members with them. Never to speak the philosophy, especially to the family members, and if they are favorable, give them, regular prasad, give prasad, and pray for them. That's it. Nothing else can be done. If they are deeply infected with the Mayavad philosophy, if they are deeply infected, if it is a superficial understanding and they can be, with preaching, they can be given the right understanding, then it's okay. Many today, actually, what I see in today's world, many don't go deep into the today's philosophy, not the Shankaracharya's. Shankaracharya's Advaita philosophy is very deep. Nobody has the intelligence to understand that philosophy. So what to speak of practicing it? But today's that remnants, Advaitan philosophy, very few you find who can really study it and understand and, try to prescribe it. It's very dangerous also. I found one or two very elders who are quite old, who in their college time, who have studied and they're very deeply subscribing to that philosophy, and they very heavily argued with me. I thought better not to argue with them, and I just maintained a cordial relationship and had some discussions with them, other discussions, not the philosophy, because they are deeply ingrained in that philosophy. It's very difficult to change them. So if somebody has a superficial understanding and, with the right philosophy, they can be changed, then it is okay. But family members themselves should not do it. We should see that some other devotee whom we are in touch, and they can have a relationship, and slowly, if they are preached, then they can be transformed. Otherwise, if they are deeply ingrained in that philosophy, better to leave it. It's very difficult. We might also get affected by it also. That's my answer. Any other questions anyone has about the 6 loving exchanges, which text 4 we discussed? So next week we will start with text 5 and the remaining verses. So we will be finishing